G'day guys, it's Mark here from North Oz, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing this brand new Toyota Fortuner GX. Let's get into it. So this video is going to be broken up into three sections. One is going to be the exterior, two is going to be the interior, and three, we're going to take this thing for a drive and see how it goes. I've been driving around this Fortuner now for the last 2.5 weeks, and I've got a very good idea of all the things that I like and dislike about it. And to compare, I've also owned a Prado in the past, and I currently own a 2023 Hilux Rogue. So I've got a good base of comparison, and I know the things that this thing does really well, and I know a lot of the things that it doesn't do well. So that's going to be a big part of today's video. Like I said, this is the GX model of the Toyota Fortuner, and it's finished off in this beautiful red. I believe it's the same Feverish Red that is on my 2023 Hilux Rogue. So obviously the first thing that I really like about this Fortuner is the color. I think that this color really suits it well. The white also suits it brilliantly as well, and I do have a bit of a soft spot for the blue. So Toyota have done a really good job on the colors and the color options for this vehicle. So getting some driveline specs out of the way, it is the exact same 2.8 liter direct injected diesel, turbo diesel engine that is the exact same one that's out of the Prado and also out of the Hilux. Now, it still runs through the same 6-speed automatic, which I have no problems with. I think it runs brilliantly. But when we do the drive, I want to speak a little bit about how the transmission feels different in the Fortuner and the Prado compared to the Hilux. So stick around for when we do that drive test, because I think you guys might be a little bit shocked on how this actually drives and how similar it is to the Prado. Up front, we've got a bright pair of HID headlights, which put out plenty of power, the exact same thing you'll find in a Prado or a Hilux. So I don't think you'll need anything more than that, and I think they do a terrific job. So on all four corners of this Toyota Fortuner, you are going to find a set of 17-inch wheels. The design of them is nice. I think that the offset of them is perfect. It fills out the wheels a lot nicer than a lot of the other vehicles in the Toyota lineup. So I think Toyota did a good job with the offset of these wheels. The design of them is nice. I think that they're easy to clean as well, because there's only 5 or 6 openings that you need to get a brush into. These aren't openings here that you can see between the kind of metal machine face of the wheel, and you've got these nice little graphite accents as well. So little things that make it look nice and also easy to clean. For the tire, you've got a set of 265/65 R17s, so pretty common wheel size. It's the usual Dunlop Grand Trek AT wheel that you'll find on here, which is pretty much a highway terrain tire, which I've done a lot of videos where I've taken this sort of tire off-road, and I've gotten very far off-road with this tire anyway, so I have nothing bad to say about this tire. The road noise of this tire is very low as well, and it does the job in terms of fuel economy, but also does the job when you go off-road as well. Especially in a vehicle like this, I think that this is actually the perfect tire for this vehicle, unless you're going to be doing mud and stuff like that. So if you're walking around the car, you'll notice that the front has a set of disc brakes, but you'll also notice that the rear also has disc brakes. Now, that might not seem like a big deal to some people, but if you are a Hilux owner or you know of the Hilux brand, you'll know that Toyota have only just put, in Australia anyway, for the first time they've put disc brakes in the rear in the 2023 Hilux Rogue. So it's taken them until 2023 to be able to put disc brakes in the rear, but the Fortuner has them stock without having to upgrade or do anything like that. And the braking of this is excellent as well. I have nothing bad to say about the braking system of this vehicle. I think it's perfect for it. And the rear disc brakes, they probably could have gotten away with rear drum brakes, but the disc brakes definitely do help, and it provides plenty of stopping power. So just speaking generally about the Toyota Fortuner and the styling, of course, this is going to be subjective, but I think that Toyota have done a really good job of kind of mixing some of the best bits of the Hilux with also some of the best bits of a Prado, because it looks very similar, and the headlights look very similar to that of, say, a Prado and that of a Hilux up the front, and then it moves into the Hilux, very similar to the Hilux body, and then once it hits about here, it kind of turns into its own vehicle, really, especially with a lot of glass in the back here, and it stops very quickly. Once it kind of gets to the end of that rear axle, it drops off straight away, which is a really good thing, because it means you've got a lot of the vehicle between the axles. And when you load the vehicle up with all the family and all the gear, maybe you have a roof rack and that on top, you're talking about a lot of weight that's going to be between the axles, and that is a very good thing when you are going off-road. So down here we've got a set of Toyota special side steps where they're not going to hold the weight of the vehicle, but they'll hold your weight if you want to get stuff on top of the car. Maybe you've got, you know, roof rack and things on there as well. It's always handy to have a little step here, and Toyota have done a good job. It's a wide step. It'll protect the sills as well from rock, you know, deflections and kick-ups and sand and stuff. So it will protect the paint, and it does actually come out a little bit further away from the side of the vehicle. So it is quite easy to stick that foot in there, hold your weight on there, and get whatever you need to on the top of the vehicle. So I think they've done a good job of it, but yeah, it would have been nice if these were steel, but Toyota do it on all their vehicles, even the $95,000 Prado. So, you know, what can you do? One thing that I really like about this Fortuner roof is it does have these nice little aerodynamic lines, similar to what you'll find on a Prado 150, but it also has one of those nice little shark fin antennas. So it's not sticking up in the front here, sits at the back, and it's a nice little look. It just adds to the exterior appeal of the vehicle. Now, although I really like the back section of this Toyota Fortuner, it isn't going to be for everyone, as there are a couple of things on here that might put you off purchasing this vehicle based on the back section alone. So the first thing that might be a bit of an annoyance is this rear-facing camera. Just knowing that my parents' caravan and they use this to hitch up, having it offset that much may be a bit of a hassle for some people. Not me, but just knowing people that do hitch up and use this to and rely on this to be able to hitch up their caravans, that may be a bit of an annoyance. Second thing that may put you off about this Toyota Fortuner is the rear door. Now, although I love the fact that it doesn't swing out, so we have access to both sides, which is something new for me coming from a Prado 150, having that opening door going up is excellent. I love that. But unfortunately, look at how high it is. I mean, I'm 6 foot and it towers over me. And if you consider that people have children and people that aren't as tall as me, for example, trying to grab this handle and pull it down, it is quite a heavy door because of the, because of the size of it, but also because of the gas struts are quite powerful. So trying to bring this down does require quite a bit of leverage and quite a bit of power. So if you consider that, you know, maybe you want your teenagers or something to close the door, or, you know, once you've gotten the groceries or when you're out camping, that may be actually quite a difficult task for them, and also for people that just aren't tall in general. Not a big deal for me, but, you know, a lot of people I think may struggle with that. And there is a blanking plate on here for an accessory, and I believe that is a push button that will automatically close this Fortuner, but that only comes in the higher up models. I think the Crusade, for example, offers that. But again, that's still quite high up, so it doesn't really make much sense. It probably would make more sense having one on the side here, but I can't see any blanking plates on the opening of this vehicle here. So just keep that in mind, that if you're trying to shut this door, it is quite a long way up and maybe a challenge for some. The last thing about this rear tailgate, and it's something that's a little bit weird, is it requires quite a fair bit of bunty to try to shut it. So if you try to shut this thing, even just with the weight of it like that, that was quite a heavy shut, but it still hasn't locked in place yet. You have to really slam this thing, and block your ears for this one. Like, you need to slam it that hard. That's like the minimum force you can put into it to shut it, and now it's good to go. But I did shut this a couple of times after picking up some groceries, and I just noticed that it wasn't shut properly. I was trying to lock it and it wasn't locking. So it does require quite a bit of force to shut it, which again, if you're someone who is struggling to try to get that door down and, you know, shut this door, that might again be a difficult task, especially if you've got teenagers and stuff, you're trying to get them, and children, to try to get them to shut this door. So that concludes the exterior section of this video. We're about to move on to the interior, but before we do that, can I ask you guys to do me a massive favor? Could you go ahead and click that subscribe button? Because YouTube tells me only about 10% of you guys watching this right now have subscribed. So if you could go ahead, click that subscribe button, that would help me out so much. But let's get on to that interior now, and I'll show you around. So to start off this interior walk around, we're going to begin in the rear section, and there is a lot of room in here. I would say about as much width as a Prado from my observations, but I will be doing a detailed comparison of a Fortuner versus our Prado 150 as well. So we'll definitely be doing that, just like we'll be doing the Hilux Fortuner comparisons as well, and a Hilux Prado comparison as well. So we've got lots of Toyota vehicles here that we've got to compare. compare. But in the back here, I really like the generous space, and especially the width. The height is definitely down in comparison to a Prado 150. So if you need extra height to store things, the Prado is going to be the way to go. But I do really like this rear section here of the Fortuner. These seats just tuck up and out of the way, and they just kind of buckle up the top here. And when you need them, they drop down and they lock into place for seats 6 and 7. Something that I really like about this is that in the Prado 150, all the vents for the passengers are all built into the sides. Now, while that may be great for cooling one side of your face, it's not particularly good for cooling your whole body and the front of your face. So what they have done, what Toyota have done in the Fortuner, they've made these nice little cutouts, these nice little bumps down in the roof, which allows them to fit an aircon unit in the front here. So they've got one here and one here, and they've also got the exact same thing in the second row of seats as well. So I think that's something that's quite clever from Toyota, just knowing this is going to be more of a family orientated car, and having the aircon blowing on the front of people instead of to the side is going to be a better option, which is something that I really like. Now, of course, this next test makes the most sense, but to be able to do it, I'm going to move this passenger seat all the way to the most back point that it can go. So what I've done is I've just put that passenger seat all the way to the back of its seat rail, and I'm going to jump in and see how much room I actually have. Now, I haven't actually sat in the back of this Fortuner yet, so it's going to be a first for me, just watching my head as I get in so I don't smack it. And you know, like I said, I'm 6 foot and I have plenty of room in here. I've got still about this much room, so still plenty of room for me. I really like the fact that that aircon sits directly in front of me, especially on a hot day. You get that aircon straight away. Looking around the interior, this is a soft cloth interior, which again, you know, it's a GX model, you would expect that. There is, just like on the Hilux, these weird little load rated plastic bag or bag carriers for your shopping and stuff like that. So, you know, use them if you want. And also in the back here, we've got a 12-volt little output there, so you can put a nice little dual USB outlet there as well. And it's got a weird little pocket here as well, which I'll overlay on the screen for you. So maybe you can put things in there, you know, whatever. Maybe the kids want to put their phone or something in there. I don't know. I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't know, but you know, there is a nice little storage section there for that. And just looking around, there's really not much else. You know, you've got curtain airbags and all that sort of stuff too. You've got a door speaker down here. You've got a nice little spot here that can fit quite a reasonably sized water bottle in the side. And apart from that, that's it. There's really no leather. It's all cloth on the side here. Hard wearing matte plastics as well. Chrome door handle, matte plastic everywhere else. So it's going to be pretty hard wearing. It's not going to show too many scratches. But yeah, for those people that were wondering if you can fit a adult human being in here, you can quite comfortably. And you know, I'd be quite comfortable here on a long trip. And remember, this is with this passenger seat in front of me here, all the way in its most rearmost setting. So even then, I still have quite a bit of leg room. Now I want to try and sit in the middle section here and see what happens. I'm not too confident I'm going to be able to fit, because there is a kind of like a head cutout here for the aircon unit that kind of sits in the front, and then in the middle it looks like that there is quite a big bump. So I'm going to try and move my way to the middle here and see if I can fit. And my head touches, but only just. So if I lean forward a little bit, it's okay. Something else that I really like, I only just noticed it actually, is there is a light here, a nice little light here for reading and stuff, which you can turn off. So maybe if the kids are reading or coloring in or something in the back here, there is a nice little light there too. And there is a rear cooler that they can control too. So I'm sure they'll have fun fighting over that, and they can control how far the fan goes, so whether it's off or all the way on maximum, which I think is a brilliant idea. So no aircon unit in the back of the center console, which I think are useless anyway. So I really like that. I think that they've done a terrific job here. They've got nice little hooks on the side here as well for hanging up your uniforms and that when you're on your way to work. So overall in the back here, I do like what Toyota have done, but definitely not as much room in here as the Prado 150. So if you're wondering, you're kind of on you know, you're kind of on the edge of going, oh, do I go Prado 150? Do I go Fortuner? There is definitely a lot more room in a Prado, especially in the second row of seats, than in the Fortuner. So keep that in mind if you're someone who is looking at that. But if you're just carrying around teenagers and kids and whatnot, as long as they're not massive, you should be fine. And there is still plenty of room in here for people. So I think Toyota have done a good job in the interior here, especially the second row of seats. It's well thought out, it's hard wearing. I think they did a good job. Now moving on to the driver's seat and the front passenger seat. And you know, I really like this interior. It's hard wearing. This is the GX model and there's still some soft materials around the place. And you know, it's hard wearing. You know, you've got just the cloth on here, and again, that's kind of like a, you know, kind of like a polyester material, which again would be pretty easy to clean. Everything's kind of all hard, and you know, people may see that as a bad thing. I think people are going to use that as oh, it's cheap, there's not as much soft materials around here. It's like, well, you know what? I would much rather a hard-wearing interior, and especially when you consider like who this vehicle is for, this is probably going to be for the person that, you know, has a family. This is for the person that goes off-road and, you know, goes camping every now and then and, you know, has multiple children. So, you know, it has to be hard-wearing. So I think that Toyota have really hit the nail on the head here. And it doesn't have anything extra. It's just everything that you need and nothing more. And I think that that's kind of getting a little bit lost in vehicles these days. And I think a lot of vehicle manufacturers are trying to push and push and push for technology and this and that and this and that. It's just more things that can go wrong. The biggest thing, the biggest takeaway that I have, you know, come away with from having this vehicle for the last 2.5 weeks is that it is a tank. This thing is an absolute tank, and it is absolutely a family tank. It's something that's going to be able to cop years and years of abuse because of, you know, having children in the vehicle and also going camping and just the day-to-day rigors of having children. So I think that this vehicle is exactly for that person that maybe doesn't want something that's really nice, that has lots of glossy surfaces and stuff on it that attract fingerprints and can scratch. I think that this is actually for the person that wants a hard-wearing tank that will be able to go off-road, which it has a very capable off-road system in it, and will still be comfortable and big enough for the family and still be able to travel in a respectable and luxurious vehicle. So if I had this vehicle and I was a parent, I would be absolutely stoked. And this actually would be my go-to choice over the Prado, just because of things like I talked about with the rear accessibility for me, but also because of the price. I think this is very well priced in the Toyota lineup. And again, yes, you do always pay a little bit extra for Toyota compared to like maybe the Isuzu MU-X and, you know, of course the Ford Everest, where you're probably going to get more value for your money. But again, I think that this is going to be the vehicle that you can own for 15, 20 years and it won't give you any troubles. Now, I wish I had a lot of features to talk about in this vehicle, but up front, there really isn't much. There's your standard touch screen up the front here with, you know, satellite navigation, stuff like that, radio. You've got a split center console here as well, and you've got a very small, just like on the Hilux, it's the exact same size, a very small center console. You've got an eco mode, a power mode, which, you know, use them at your discretion. I just leave it on normal mode anyway. There is a rear diff lock, traction control down here as well. You've got a few blanking plates up here for accessories if you want to use that. There is the Apple CarPlay input, so to be able to use Apple CarPlay in this, which I have been using for the last 2 weeks, you have to plug it into the USB. You've also got a 12 volts accessory socket as well, so you'll be able to put maybe extra USB output, stuff like that. One thing that I really like about this, and this comes back to my point in the last clip that you saw about it being hard wearing, but something that I really like is that there are very few actual buttons in this Fortuner. And for those of you that have been following this channel for a while now, you will know that I absolutely hate buttons and I absolutely love manual dials. So this has, like, I can count 4 right now. I've got 4 you know, manual dials in front of me, and they sound so good. They make all the right noises. I've been driving around this vehicle for the last couple of weeks, and even I know automatically where to find the fan speed, where to find the cold and the hot temperature, and where to find the different modes for face and feet and face and all that sort of stuff. So even I know it's so intuitive that it's right in front of you. You just know where it is. And when you're off-road or you've got enough distractions, maybe you've got kids in the back and whatnot, it's just so good to not worry about having to stuff around with different buttons. But there's something that annoyed me about the Prado 150 is that to change the temperature, you got to go up because it's all the 0.5 degree increments, which, by the time you actually get to the temperature that you want, you're probably arrived at your destination anyway. So just having a quick dial, that's plenty. So I really like that. I really like the fact that it's simple. So that for me is actually a positive thing. Probably the only thing that bothers me a little bit is the fact that there's really nowhere to put your phone. Like once you've plugged it in with the CarPlay, if you've got, say you've got your water bottle or something in the cup holders here, and you open that up, you lose all the access to the room behind that little panel. You can't actually get your hand in there to do anything. So that's something that's kind of bothered me a little bit. So what I've done is I've actually ended up just leaving the cup holders open. I just put my key in there, and I also just leave my phone in there as well. It's easier than having to reach all the way to the back of this weird little cubby section there that doesn't go as deep as a Hilux. So I didn't have this problem on my Hilux, but on the Fortuner I did. So just an ergonomics thing there. When that cup holder lid is open, it does actually block access to where your phone should be staying when you have it plugged in for the CarPlay. So I'm not going to go into every single little detail about every single feature this thing has got, because that would take us a very long time. But what it does have is your standard speaker system. It's got tweeters at the top here, which I actually really like the sound of. A lot of people have been asking me, how does the non-JBL speaker system sound? So just a standard Toyota system. I really like it. I think it sounds exactly how it should. I tried playing around with the EQ on these before, and I don't really get much of a better sound than what Toyota sent it out with. So I like it. I don't think it's worthwhile upgrading. And if you did want to upgrade later on anyway, save the money and just put a set of 6-inch door speakers in, and that will be more than enough from my experiences. So speaker system sounds good. I get that question a lot, and the it's got your hands-free Bluetooth, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to go into every single little detail, but that's kind of the basics. I will also speak on the fuel economy. I find I get the exact same on my Hilux, which at the moment is around 8.5 to 9, something like that. Depends what you're doing. Lots of stop-start will obviously bump it up. Obviously, I do a lot of highway driving because I do a lot of traveling and stuff like that. So, I'm going to see a bit of a lower number than some people. So if you're using this day-to-day in traffic, you're going to get under 10, depending on how heavy your foot is, of course. That concludes the interior section of this video. Let's take this thing out for a drive and see how it handles. So let's start our drive, and it's a little bit weird on the GX. They give you a central locking key, but they also give you a car key. I'm not sure if that's because of who I borrowed it from. That's how it is and how they gave it to me. But anyway, for this car, we've got a central locking key, and we've also got a proper car key. No push to start on this one. That's been blanked out with a blanking plate. We'll start it up and away we go. Right, now on this vehicle, we have got 3,104 kilometers on the clock. So let me just lock up here. So if you guys ever test drive one of these Fortuners back to back with a Prado and a Hilux as well, if you're interested in that body shape, you'll notice that the Hilux rides a lot firmer than this, and the Prado rides a lot softer than this. So I would like to say that this ride and this vehicle, although it's compared a lot to the Hilux, I don't think it's a really fair comparison. I think that the Fortuner is in the middle. I think it's in the middle of the Hilux and the Prado in terms of the firmness of the suspension. I think it's a good middle point, and I think that the suspension on the Prado is actually too soft and it causes a lot of body roll. But this is quite firm, and through roundabouts and through corners, you don't feel like the vehicle is leaning like what you do on the Prado 150. So I actually do prefer the suspension of the Fortuner over the Prado 150. Like I said, with ergonomics and that, everything is within reach, everything is easy to access. You kind of intuitively know where everything is. You know where all the aircon buttons are. everything. So that's something that I really like, that this is a very ergonomic and easy to use area for the driver. So there's not many distractions and things, you know, bright screens and having to stuff around on touch screens for aircon controls, and there's none of that going on in here. It's very simple, but I think that that is a very, very good positive. I think that's something that is often overlooked these days, like I said when we did the interior section of this review. So we're getting up to speed now. We're getting up to about 80 kilometers an hour out here, and listen, it's actually quiet in here. It's not loud at all. Like, I'm not having to shout to speak. I think that it's probably maybe just a little bit louder than my Hilux Rogue. It's probably, again, just a little bit louder than the Prado 150, but I think it's probably about as loud as a standard Hilux SR5. I think it's about the same as that. And again, it's not a loud thing. There's no whistling. There's no, you know, there's no real wind noise or anything like that. I think that it's perfect. I think that Toyota did a terrific job with the sound deadening in this. I don't think it's intrusive. I don't think it's particularly quiet either. Again, it just kind of sits in the middle. It's kind of the middle of the road, middle of the pack. And I really like it. It's nothing, you're not going to get in this and be like, oh, it's so much louder than a Prado 150. I don't think you'll have that experience. You know, engine noise, road noise, it's all very similar to a Prado 150. So just in case you're wondering, you're not going to get in this and be like, oh, it's so much louder. It's really not. It's very comfortable in here, not particularly loud at all. So we're on a nice flat road here, and listen, I could do many, many hours in this vehicle. Very comfortable on the road. Very comfortable long distances. Yes, it's not as wide in the driver's area and the driver's foot bay as a Prado 150. Is that a problem? No, I haven't found that to be a problem. In fact, I prefer these seats over the Prado seats. I think that the seats on these sit a little bit flatter than the Prado 150, so I actually do prefer these seats over that. So again, you know, budget-wise, I think that this offers very, very good value for money. Comparing this to some of Toyota's more expensive models. There really isn't much in the way of support, like there's no lumbar support, no electric seats or anything like that. So that's something that I missed earlier on in the interior review. But again, like, these aren't big things. You get in the car, you drive it, who cares? I think it's great. I think, you know, guys, honestly, I think that this represents very good value for money. This thing, like I said, is an absolute tank, and I think that this is going to serve a lot of people for a very, very long time. So we're on the road coming up to our first roundabout, so we'll see how it handles around these corners. And again, it's not as floaty as that Prado 150, so you might even notice that I'm going to stay quite flat through this corner here. This person next to me is having difficulty staying in their lane, and you know, went around that roundabout at a reasonable speed, handled it perfectly. No issues at all, didn't get out of shape, nothing, very comfortable. Now, one thing that I did want to mention was that the transmission in the Fortuner is very similar to the transmission in the Prado 150, but the Hilux is very jerky as it changes between gears. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind as well, that if you are someone who's looking at buying a Hilux maybe, that the transmission in that is a lot more rough. It's a lot rougher than what it is in the Fortuner, in the Prado. And I find that however Toyota have done it, whether it's through weight or tuning or something like that, I think that this is a particularly good tune for the transmission, because it's exactly the same and it feels exactly the same as a Prado 150. It's just a lot cheaper is all. Now again, we're going to come up to a couple of roundabouts here. Again, maintaining decent speed through here too. And, you know, going through these corners and going around these roundabouts, I would not be able to do this and be as comfortable if I was in that Prado. So this Fortuner does handle very well. Yes, the downside to that is you feel a lot more bumps and you feel a lot more undulations in the road. So that is something to consider as well, that it's not going to be as soft as, say, the Prado, but you are saving a lot of money, so that's a big time bonus. And again, like, it's all personal preference, but I really do like the fact that this rides a little bit firmer than the Prado 150, but it is a little bit softer than the Hilux. So just my observations at the top of my head, going from a Hilux jumping into a Prado 150 and now jumping into this straight away. So I'm just going to go on a couple of back roads here. I used to drive this road every single day, so I know that it's a good road to test your suspension on, and you'll kind of see, I guess, a little bit of how this firmer suspension reacts. And you can probably see me jumping around, bouncing around just a little bit. And again, that's because, it is a little bit firmer than, say, the Prado. You wouldn't feel that in the Prado. But again, I'll be reacting a lot more if I was in the Hilux. That would be quite a big cabin intrusion. But again, we've got some, little rough roads here, going around some corners and some bends. And it handles perfectly fine. Like, I have no issues with this. It feels good. It drives well. I think this is a very good vehicle. So as we're kind of winding our way through some of these back roads, I just want to conclude with saying that I think this vehicle will suit a lot of people. I think this is a great vehicle. I really do like it. I think it represents good value in the Toyota range and in the Toyota lineup if you really want to get into the Toyota ecosystem, I suppose. And I think it's a great vehicle. I would definitely, and I did consider buying one of these, but I decided against it because I needed the extra room of the Prado and I wanted to fit it out a little bit more. But after driving around in this for the last couple of weeks, I definitely would consider buying this vehicle. And you know what? In the future, I actually may buy this vehicle at some point because it is that good. And I think that this vehicle is going to serve a lot of people for a really long time, and it does a lot of things really well. So guys, I'm going to finish it off there. It's pretty hot in here and all the cameras are shutting down. They're not really enjoying the summer heat of the tropics. But guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you very shortly in the next video, but I'll see you even sooner down in the comment section. See you there.